Hi, I'm Derek Hooper, Australian PGA professional and golf coach. Thank you for joining me today in the first lesson of our Better Putting Blueprint series. Today we're going to be focusing on pre-swing fundamentals. Most of the time when I meet with players, they're talking about the things that they're working on their golf game, and quite often they're in-swing changes that they're trying to make. Yet we find the best players in the world spend the majority of their time working on fundamentals, and they're the things that we're going to focus on in this first lesson. We're going to focus on your pre-swing fundamentals in terms of how to set up, how to aim the putter, and how to make a basic stroke. And by doing so, we're going to give you a firm foundation so that we can build upon that in future lessons. I'm looking forward to sharing this information with you, because I know that if you can become better with your putting, you're going to become a better player. I want you to keep in mind that 40% of your strokes that you make on the golf course are going to be made with putter. So this is the area where you can make the biggest improvement to your scores the fastest. So let's get into the fundamentals. Let's start our process together, and I'm looking forward to improving your putting with you. Putting is a critical component to shooting lower scores. In any round of golf, you're going to hit approximately 40% of your shots with putter. So I think you can see from that alone, it's a pretty important component to shooting lower scores. The other thing with putting is it requires no unusual physical ability to be able to excel at it. You don't need to have a superior strength. You don't need superior flexibility. You just need patience and good work ethic to be able to improve your technique. Today what we're going to talk about are the fundamentals of the putting stroke. Fundamentals are key to being able to perform at the highest level, and they're the things that the best players in the world will start work on before they move on to anything else. Yet the players that I see on a regular basis always want to work on in-swing movements before they look at their pre-swing fundamentals. Yet often what we see are there are errors in their pre-swing, which are then causing corrections, them to make corrections in swing, and it's just a complete mess by the time they get to actually striking the ball, and it's difficult for them to have any consistency. So in today's lesson, we're going to go over pre-swing fundamentals, give you a very firm foundation that you can build on in the coming weeks. It's going to be the key to your success with putting, and it's going to make you a much better putter. The key to great putting is being able to select the line that you want to start the ball on, and then your ability to hit the ball on that line at the appropriate speed. So the thing we're going to work on first and foremost is, well, how are we going to set up to give ourselves the best opportunity to do that? So what I get players to do is I want you to stand with your feet comfortable with the part. You're going to bend your knees slightly, and then bend from your hips and let your arms hang in front of you so your hands clap together. From here, what I'm going to ask you to do is I want you to take the triangle that's formed between your arms and shoulders and gently rock that triangle back and forth, and you're going to keep your legs and knees very, very still, hips not moving either. And this is going to be the foundation of your putting stroke. Once you've got that setup position, I then want you to take your putter and place the putter in the palm of your left hand. If you take your thumb and forefinger and push them and touch them together, you'll see there's a groove that's formed in this part of your hand, which is where the lifeline of your hand is. That's where I want that putter to sit on your hand. So you can see how it sits there. We're going to put the thumb down the flat section of the grip, and there should be a slight gap in the back of the grip just here so that we get the shaft and your left forearm or your lead forearm to match up in a straight line. Then what I want you to do is then take your right hand and place it below the left so that we've got, again, the thumb on the grip and the arms are hanging comfortably. Now, in doing that, we're then going to find, sometimes I find players come along to see me and they've got putters which are the wrong length for them. So what we see is that they'll change their natural setup to fit the length of the putter. That is not what we want to do, because it's going to compromise your natural putting stroke. What we need to do is we need to figure out where should you stand and then get the putter to fit you. So this putter is fitted to me. When my arms hang comfortably, my hands sit on the grip nicely like that. But I see players that will often be gripping the club down here when we first do this setup with them. What I would suggest you do is don't move your hands back up the grip. Let's keep the hands where they are when you stand in that natural relaxed position, and let's go ahead and putt with your hands on that part of the grip for a good week or two first, so you can see the results you're going to get from that setup. If after that length of time you decide, you know what, I really am putting better there, I need to get this putter length changed, well, at that time you've got two options. You can either go out and buy a new putter which is at the appropriate length, or you can take your putter into your local golf shop And what they'll do is they'll take the grip off, cut the shaft, and put the grip back on for you and make it the length that is appropriate for you. So once we're in that setup, now we want to start talking a little bit about stroke mechanics. So we touched on that a second ago, that we want to get the shoulders to move the putter. So I want to make sure that my shoulders are moving in this fashion, and that's what's going to move the putter left and right. It's been talked about a lot of the time, like the putting stroke is very much like a pendulum, and I brought along a training aid today that I like to use with players, and this is actually called the putting pendulum rod from Eyeline. So what we do is we set it up so it sits on the back of the putter, the other end rests against the center of my chest, so that when I set up, my goal is that I want to make sure the shaft of my putter and the pendulum stay parallel to each other. So I'm looking for this type of stroke. It's an excellent training aid for getting the feel of how my shoulders are going to control the putting stroke, because if I get in here and I start using my hands too much, you can see how much the shaft, the putter shaft and the rod vary when I do that. So I want to make sure that I'm using my shoulders to rock, and therefore the putter moves back and forth. Now once I've got a feel for that, I can definitely put a ball in there. I want to set up to the ball, go through the same exercise. From there, all I want to do is I'm just going to roll the ball across the green. I'm looking for the length of my backswing and the length of my follow through to be similar length, because that's what's going to control the length of the putt. I'll set it up again. And all I'm trying to do is to make sure that I get the feeling that the shoulders are moving the putter and my hands are doing as little as possible. So I'm going to leave you with an exercise. What I'd like you to do is, if you can get hold of one of these, and I'm going to attach I'm going to have a link for you so that you can get hold of one of these if you would like. If you want to use something else that you can make at home to set up and do the same thing, that would be fine. But basically what we want to do is we need the length to be from the putter to the center of your chest in your natural setup position. And what I would ask you to do is, I'd love to see you make 50 putts of those before we move on to the next exercise. So what that's going to do is allow you to work on moving your shoulders correctly. Again, we want to see very little hand motion. We want to see the putter shaft staying parallel to the pendulum, and that's going to give you that feeling of shoulders moving the putter. It's going to make you far more consistent in controlling how the putter moves through the golf ball. So once you've done some practice on getting the feeling of your shoulders controlling the motion of the stroke and not using your hands, the next drill we want to move on to now is we want to show you how the putter path is going to work during the stroke. So I've set up this little practice station here. I've got an alignment rod on the ground which is pointing at the right edge of the hole, and then I've got another alignment rod which is off the ground so that I can rest the shaft of the putter on this, and I'm going to run the putter shaft along the rod. Now what you're going to see when I do that, again, I'm using my shoulders to move the putter. You're going to see that the putter moves on a very gentle arc. Now the reason that it does that is that the putter works on an inclined plane, so that as the putter works away from the ball, it's going to go up and in, then it works back down the plane, so it moves back down and out, and then into the follow through it works up and in again as it works up the plane. So if you're looking directly down on top of it, it looks like the putter's working on a very gentle arc, but the reality is it's just working on a plane and staying fairly square to that path that you're working along. So when you set up this drill, what I'd encourage you to do is I want you to take some strokes and you're trying to just run the putter shaft along the elevated rod, and you're trying to get the feeling of how the putter's going to work in that nice gentle arc. I'm not manipulating it with my hands. I'm letting my shoulders do the work, the same as I was when I was doing that work with the pendulum a few minutes ago. Once I've got a feel for that, and I'm seeing that the putter's working fairly consistently back and through, I'm able to stay on the elevated rod with some consistency, I then want to move a ball in here, and I'm going to set it up so that I can then strike some putts doing the same thing. Now, I didn't mention, but it's very, very important, this putt is straight. If you're going to stand in one location and hit multiple putts from that same location, you need the putt to be straight. We don't want to be setting up with breaking putts, because if you see this putt breaking over and over again, then when you get out on the golf course, everything's going to look like it breaks that way. So before we got started this morning, I was rolling some balls across the green to make sure I found a nice straight putt for us to use. So now I'm going to set up, I'm going to aim the putter. I've got the putter shaft resting on the elevated rod. I take my stance, I'm going to run the shaft along the elevated rod, and the ball's going to go in the hole. And the idea is that I want to feel how that stroke's working back and through and staying on that rod. So that is an excellent drill for you to work on path. A little later in this series, we're going to talk a little more about face, but today what I wanted to do was really get into how do we set up our pre-swing fundamentals and give you some ideas on how the putter is going to generate its motion during the stroke, remembering that it's coming from the shoulders. In future lessons, like I said, we're going to work on path. We're also going to work on some green reading. We're going to work on some distance control, all the key elements that you need to be able to be a fantastic putter. The last thing I just want to leave you with this today, so when you set this drill up at home, as we said, I'd love to see you doing some practice drills first and foremost where we're just running the shaft along the rod. I would suggest you want to do about 50 putts or 50 strokes just like this without a ball. Once you feel like you can do that consistently, then I'd put a ball in there. I then want to, as we said, run the shaft of the putter along the rod, back and through. And I'd have you do this drill until you can make 10 or 15 in a row. Once you can make 10 or 15 in a row, then you've mastered this skill, and then we can move on to the future skills in future lessons. Thank you for joining me for today's lesson. I can guarantee that if you go away and work on the fundamentals that we spoke about, along with and implement the practice drills that we also discussed, your putting's going to improve greatly. Feel free to post any questions or comments you may have about today's lesson below this video. Also be sure to check out the attachments, which will have links to the training aids that we used today, as well as outlines of the practice drills that we talked about also. Thanks very much for joining me, and I look forward to seeing you next time.